The Imperial Transport's emergency hatch groaned open, and I found myself staring at the last thing I expected. A Valorian princess with blood on her silver robes and terror in her violet eyes. "You're the human pilot," she said. "Not a question. And you're supposed to be in the royal quarters, 3 decks up." I kept my rifle trained on the corridor behind her, which means either you're lost or something very bad just happened. The explosion that rocked the ship answered for her. "My name is Sergeant Marcus Cole, and I'd spent 12 years flying combat shuttles for the Terran Defense Corps before getting reassigned to this glorified taxi service, ferrying Valorian diplomats between their crystal spires and our military outposts. The Valorians were our allies technically. Ancient, elegant, insufferably superior. Their royal family had ruled 1,000 systems before humanity learned to make fire. And now one of them was bleeding in my cargo bay. "The Kethari," she breathed. "They've taken the bridge. My father, the Emperor." Her voice cracked, and for a moment she looked impossibly young. "They killed him. They killed everyone." I processed this in the way soldiers do. Facts first, feelings never. How many hostiles? I don't know. 20, 30. They came through the maintenance shafts. The Kethari were insectoid raiders who'd been harassing the outer rim for decades. Fast, vicious, and they particularly hated the Valorians for some ancient grudge nobody remembered anymore. If they'd infiltrated an Imperial transport, they weren't after cargo. They were after her. "What's your name?" I asked. "I am Her Imperial Highness Alindra Velshan, 3rd daughter of," shorter version. Something flickered in those alien eyes. Offense, maybe. Or the beginning of respect. "Alindra, Marcus. Stay behind me, don't touch anything, and if I tell you to run, you run." I checked my rifle's charge. "Can you do that, Your Highness? I am not accustomed to taking orders from—" A Kethari shriek echoed from somewhere close. Too close. "But I will make an exception," she finished quickly. I almost smiled. Almost. The cargo bay had 3 exits. Main corridor was compromised. Service tunnel led to engineering, probably crawling with hostiles. That left the emergency shuttle dock, where my personal craft sat fueled and ready because I never, ever trusted anyone else's maintenance. "This way." We moved through the flickering emergency lights, the princess surprisingly quiet for someone wearing ceremonial robes that probably cost more than my yearly salary. The Valorians were taller than humans, willowy and pale, with features that seemed carved from moonlight. Alindra moved like water, graceful even in fear. I moved like what I was, a tired soldier who'd seen too many wars and buried too many friends. "Why were you in the cargo bay?" I asked, as we reached the service junction. "I was looking for a weapon. In cargo, the armory was occupied." She'd been fighting. A Valorian princess, raised in crystal towers and silk gardens, had been fighting her way through her father's killers to find a weapon. I revised my assessment of her slightly upward. "Here, Panya." I pulled my sidearm from its holster and handed it to her. "Point. Squeeze. Don't shoot me." She took it with hands that only trembled slightly. "I am trained in the ceremonial blade arts." "Great. If we run into any ceremonial blades, you're in charge." The shuttle dock was 30 meters away when we heard them, the clicking, chittering sound of Kethari communication. At least 4 of them, between us and our only escape. I pressed Alindra against the wall, one hand on her shoulder. She was shaking now, the adrenaline and shock finally catching up. "I can't," she whispered. "Marcus, I can't. My father, yes you can." I met her eyes, and something passed between us. Not understanding, not yet. But recognition. 2 people in an impossible situation, with nothing but each other. "You survived this long. You found me." You keep surviving. That's what you do now. Why do you care? Her voice was barely audible. I'm just cargo to you. Just another Valorian. It was a fair question. I didn't have a good answer. Because I'm tired of watching people die, I said finally. And you're not dying today. Not on my watch. The Kethari were getting closer. I checked my rifle one more time and made a decision that would change both our lives forever. When I move, you move. Stay low. Don't stop for anything. I looked at her. Really looked. Underneath the blood and the terror, I saw something. Strength, maybe. Or just the desperate will to live. Ready? Alindra raised the sidearm I'd given her. Her hands had stopped shaking. Ready. We made it to the shuttle with 4 dead Kethari behind us and exactly 0 time to spare. The princess, it turned out, could shoot. Where did you learn that? I demanded as I sealed the hatch and sprinted for the cockpit. I told you. Ceremonial blade arts. She dropped into the co-pilot seat without being asked. The pistol is merely a very fast blade. I didn't have time to argue with alien logic. The shuttle's engines screamed to life, and I punched us out of the docking bay just as the transport's reactor went critical. The explosion painted the void behind us in shades of orange and white. Alindra watched it through the viewport. Watched her father's funeral pyre spread across the stars. I'm sorry, I said. Don't. Her voice was flat, empty. Not yet. I can't. Not yet. I understood that too. We flew in silence for 3 hours, putting as much distance between us and the debris field as possible. The shuttle's long-range communications were fried, damaged in our escape, which meant we couldn't call for help. We had enough fuel to reach Theta Station, but it would take 2 weeks at our current speed. 2 weeks alone, with a grieving princess who was now, technically, an empress. The Kethari didn't find us by accident, Alindra said finally. Someone told them the transport's route. Someone in the court. You have enemies? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I have rivals. My sisters, their factions. The noble houses who would prefer a more pliable ruler. She turned to look at me. Do you know why I was on that transport, Sergeant Cole? Diplomatic mission. That's what the briefing said. I was being sent to a marriage, a political arrangement with the sovereign of the Karneth Dominion. Her jaw tightened. I was to be a gift, a symbol of alliance. Sounds like a raw deal. It was my duty. She said it like she was trying to convince herself. My father believed it would secure peace for a generation. And now my father is dead. The marriage is void. And I am... She spread her hands, looking at the blood still staining them. I don't know what I am. In the Valorian hierarchy, she was a princess without a court, an empress without an empire. The moment she returned home, she'd be caught in a web of politics and assassination attempts that made the Kethari look straightforward. But out here, in my shuttle, she was just a young woman who'd lost everything. You're alive, I said. Start there. Over the following days, we fell into a routine. I handled the piloting and navigation. Alindra took over the communications array, trying to boost our signal enough to reach someone friendly. She was surprisingly good with her hands, quick and precise, though she complained constantly about the primitive human technology. This relay system is held together with adhesive tape, she observed on the 4th day. That's called duct tape. And it's humanity's greatest invention. Greater than faster than light travel? FDL doesn't fix leaky pipes. She actually smiled at that. It was small, barely there, but it was the first time I'd seen her face do anything but grieve. We talked more as the days passed. Not about the attack. That wound was too fresh, but about smaller things. She told me about Valorian music, which sounded like wind through crystal caves. I told her about Earth, about the small town in Montana where I'd grown up before everything went to hell. You joined the military young, she observed. 16. Lied about my age. Why? I stared at the starfield for a long moment. Because my mother was sick, and the military offered medical coverage. Because my father was dead, and I didn't know what else to do. I shrugged. Because I was angry, and fighting seemed better than feeling. And now? Are you still angry? Now I'm just tired. Alindra was quiet for a while. Then, softly, I think I understand tired. On the 7th day, she asked me to teach her to fight. You can already shoot, I pointed out. I can point and squeeze, as you said. I want to learn properly. She stood in the cargo hold, still wearing the same torn robes, because I didn't have anything in her size. The Cathari are still out there. Whoever betrayed my family is still out there. I refuse to be helpless again. So I taught her. We started with basics: stance, breathing, how to assess a threat. She learned fast, her alien physiology adapting to human combat techniques with surprising ease. By the 10th day, she could disarm me 3 times out of 10. By the 12th, it was closer to 5. You're a quick study, I admitted. I have an excellent teacher. She was breathing hard, but there was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Though your techniques are brutal. Human fighting tends to be. Yes. She looked at her hands, at the calluses forming on her silver-white skin. I begin to see why the Cathari fear your species. They don't fear us. They should. She met my eyes. You protect what is yours with a ferocity that borders on madness. It is impressive. Is that a compliment, Your Highness? It is an observation, Sergeant Cole. But she was smiling again, and this time it reached her eyes. That night, I woke to the sound of crying. Alindra was curled in the co-pilot seat, trying to muffle her sobs in her ruined robes. She hadn't let herself grieve, not properly. She'd been too busy surviving, planning, learning to fight. But grief doesn't wait forever. I didn't say anything. I just sat down beside her and put a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into me, this ancient alien princess, this empress of 1,000 worlds, and wept like a child. And I held her, because sometimes that's all you can do. I miss him, she whispered. I know. He wasn't perfect. He could be cold and distant, and he never. She choked on a sob. But he was my father. I know. How do you bear it? The loss. I thought about the friends I'd buried, the soldiers I'd failed to save, the mother who died while I was fighting a war 6 systems away. You don't, I said finally. Not really. Not really. You keep going. And eventually, the weight gets a little lighter. Does it ever stop hurting? No. But you learn to carry it. She was quiet for a long time after that, but she didn't pull away. And something shifted between us, something neither of us named. The Cathari found us on the 13th day. I was running diagnostics when the proximity alarm screamed. 3 ships, closing fast, and our shuttle had all the combat capability of a drunk pigeon. Can we outrun them? Alindra was at my side in seconds, already reading the displays. No. I pulled up the tactical map, but there's an asteroid field nearby, dense enough to lose them if we're lucky. And if we're not lucky? Then it was nice knowing you, Your Highness. The chase through the asteroids was the most terrifying hour of my life, and I've lived through 3 wars. The shuttle wasn't built for this kind of flying, neither was I. But desperation makes you capable of impossible things. Alindra called out obstacles while I flew, her alien eyes catching things mine would have missed. We moved together like we'd been doing this for years, not days. Hard left, I see it. No, the smaller one. I said. I see it. We lost the first pursuer when they clipped an asteroid and spun into another. The second pulled back, unwilling to risk the denser regions. But the third stayed on us, relentless. They're gaining, Alindra said. I noticed. They'll have us in weapons range in 4 minutes. I noticed that too. What do we do? I looked at her, really looked, and made another decision. We stop running. The shuttle had exactly one weapon, a mining laser meant for clearing debris. It wasn't designed for combat, but it was better than nothing. I need you to take the controls, I said. I can't fly this. You've been watching me for 2 weeks. You know the basics. I was already moving toward the manual weapons station. Just keep us steady and don't hit any rocks. Marcus, I trust you. 3 words. Simple words. But the look on her face told me they meant more than I'd intended. She took the controls. What followed was ugly, desperate, and nothing like the elegant space battles in the vids. Alindra flew like someone who'd learned from watching, which meant she overcompensated constantly. I fired at anything that moved, which meant I wasted half our laser's charge on asteroids. But we made it work. The Cathari ship took a hit to its engines and spiraled into a rock formation. The explosion was almost beautiful. We did it, Alindra breathed. We did it, I agreed. And then our own engine gave out. The shuttle drifted in the asteroid field, dead in the water. No propulsion, no communications, no weapons. Life support would last another week, maybe 2, if we rationed. Can you fix it? Alindra asked. I looked at the damage assessment. Maybe, but I'd need to go outside, then go. It's not that simple. The field's still active. Those rocks are moving. If one hits me, then I'll watch. I'll warn you. She gripped my arm with surprising strength. Marcus, if we stay here, we die. If we drift out of the field, more Cathari will find us. This is the only option. She was right. I hated that she was right. The EVA was a nightmare. Asteroid fragments pinged off my suit as I worked, and more than once, Alindra's voice in my ear was the only thing that kept me from getting crushed. 2 meters left. Now dodge right. Hold position. I can't see trust me. I trusted her. 3 hours later, I'd patched the engine enough to limp us out of the field. When I got back inside, Alindra was waiting with the shuttle's emergency blanket and the closest thing we had to hot coffee. You're alive, she said. Disappointed? Relieved. She wrapped the blanket around me herself, her hands lingering on my shoulders. I thought, when that rock came toward you, it missed. Barely counts. She laughed, but it turned into something else, something that sounded almost like a sob. I can't lose you too. Do you understand? I can't. I should have said something professional, something about duty and appropriate boundaries. Instead, I pulled her close and held her. You won't, I said. I promise. You can't promise that. No. But I'm promising anyway. We stayed like that for a long time, floating in the void. 2 people who shouldn't have meant anything to each other, but somehow meant everything. Theta Station was 2 days away when the Valorian battlecruiser found us. The EA Celestial Throning was one of the largest ships I'd ever seen, a crystal fortress floating among the stars. It dwarfed our battered shuttle like a whale dwarfs a minnow. Unidentified vessel. This is the Valorian Imperial Navy. Identify yourself immediately. Alindra took the comm before I could stop her. This is Her Imperial Highness Alindra Velshan, 3rd daughter of Emperor Velshan, aboard a Terran Defense Corps shuttle. I am requesting immediate extraction. The silence that followed was deafening. Your Highness, the voice finally said, the Imperial Court declared you dead 2 weeks ago. There is, a great deal happening that you should be aware of. Then perhaps you should bring me aboard so I can become aware of it. Within an hour, we were docked in the battlecruiser's hangar. surrounded by Valorian soldiers in their ceremonial armor. They looked at me like I was something they'd scraped off their boots. "The human stays with me," Aelindra said when they tried to separate us. "Your Highness, protocol. I am aware of protocol. I am also aware that this man saved my life multiple times while your navy failed to protect my father's transport. He stays." She was different now. The grieving girl I had held in the cargo hold was still there, but she was wrapped in something harder, something regal. The ship's captain, a silver-haired Valorian named Vel Thorn, briefed us in his private quarters. "Your sister Kaelindra has claimed the throne," he said. "With your presumed death, she was next in the line of succession. She's already consolidated power among the noble houses. And the investigation into my father's death?" Vel Thorn's jaw tightened. Officially, it was Cathari raiders acting alone. Unofficially, there are rumors that my sister arranged it. "I did not say that, Your Highness. You didn't have to." The politics were exactly as ugly as I'd expected. Kaelindra had made alliances, promised favors, eliminated rivals. She wouldn't be happy to learn her little sister had survived. "What will you do?" I asked when we were alone. Aelindra stood at the viewport, watching the stars. She looked tired. She looked beautiful. "What I must," she said. "Return to Valoria, challenge Kaelindra's claim. Probably start a civil war. Sounds like a raw deal. It sounds like duty." She turned to face me. "But first, Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." "I'm listening." "In Valorian law, there is a concept called Wyvel Shankiran, the blood bond." She stepped closer. "When someone saves your life at great personal risk, they become entangled. Legally, spiritually. The bond cannot be broken except by death." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "So, what? I'm bound to you now?" "No." She shook her head. "I am bound to you. You saved me, Marcus. Multiple times. By our laws, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. I am, in a sense, yours." I struggled for words. "That's insane." "Is it?" She was very close now. "You protected me when you had no obligation. You held me when I grieved. You trusted me with your life when logic said you shouldn't." She reached up to touch my face, her fingers cool against my skin. "In my culture, that creates a bond more powerful than marriage. Aelindra, let me finish." She took a breath. "The bond exists whether we acknowledge it or not. But I am not here to claim you as property. I am here to ask if you would want it." "Want what?" "Me." The word was barely audible, not as an empress, not as a prize. Just me. I thought about the past 2 weeks. The fear, the fighting, the quiet moments between. I thought about how she laughed at my terrible jokes and cried against my shoulder. I thought about how it felt when she gripped my arm and told me to trust her. "I'm a soldier," I said finally. "Tired, broken in places I don't talk about. I don't know anything about your world or your politics. I'm probably a terrible choice for whatever this is." "You are," she agreed. "By every standard my people would use, you are entirely unsuitable. Then why?" "Because none of that matters." She was crying now, but smiling through the tears. "Because you saw me when I was covered in blood and terrified, and you didn't see a princess or a burden. You saw a person. Because you promised you wouldn't let me lose you, and I'm choosing to believe that promise. Aelindra, in my world I am about to be either empress or exile. I will have armies or assassins, power or death." She gripped my hands, her fingers intertwining with mine. "But here, in this moment, I am asking you, just you, if you would stay. Not because of duty or bonds or debts. Because you want to." I looked at her. Really looked. At the grief she carried and the strength beneath it. At the woman who'd learned to shoot and fight and trust a stranger. At the princess who'd become something more. I'm a criminal, you know, I said. By your sister's standards. I helped you escape. I'm probably wanted for treason. Then we're both criminals now. You were royalty. I was your crime. Yes. She smiled through her tears, and I wouldn't change it. I kissed her. It wasn't elegant or romantic like in the vids. It was desperate and real and tasted like tears and coffee and 2 weeks of terror. But it was ours. When we finally pulled apart, Elindra's eyes were brighter than I'd ever seen them. So, she said, what now? Now? I took her hand. Now we go back to your world. We face your sister. We probably start that civil war together. I thought about the first moment I'd seen her, bloody and terrified and impossibly brave. I thought about the cold equations of duty and politics and ancient laws. And I thought about how none of that mattered compared to the woman standing in front of me. Together, I said. We walked out of that room hand in hand, a tired soldier and a grieving princess, a criminal and his crime. The Valorian officers stared. The whispers started immediately. Let them whisper, I thought. We'd escaped death together. We'd found something neither of us expected. And whatever came next, whatever wars or politics or assassins, we'd face it the same way. Together,